Hi, this is Dr. Jeffrey Hanna at Atlas Health Australia. I want to share with you an interesting phenomenon called a complex jam pattern. Now, this actually comes from a conversation that I had with a client who was in here just last week. What we had done is we had done a series of assessments, as we usually do, and one of the things, if you've seen a number of our videos, is we're looking at a person's posture. And it's because posture's got very little to do with laziness. It's where there's tension on the system, and rather than letting the nerves get compressed or crushed, your brain intelligently is going to try to create compensations, stuff like this, from the top on down in order to minimize that stress and tension as much as possible. The thing is, it can only do that for so long before eventually something is going to give. Now, this fellow, he asked a really good question, and it was because we had done a series of pictures of him, and we were finding that his overall body distortion posture, when we were looking at the relative tipping of his shoulders, when we were looking at, was his head going sideways, was his head sticking forwards like this, that really things were actually the same, plus or minus under a centimeter on either side. And he said, well, is it really that significant? And my answer to him was yes, because there was one other thing going on. What we did was we took him on a set of scales, put him up like this, and his body, when he just said, okay, stand up, whatever feels normal to you, he was favoring the right side by about 20 kilos. Now, that is not a small number. The fellow, I think that he weighed around 100 kilos total, so we're talking a fifth of his overall body weight one side. It should really be no more than about 1 to 2% somewhere in there. So most people, that's 1, maybe 2 kilograms difference is normal when the system is working right. So we had an interesting phenomenon going on and a paradox. We had, quote, his posture looking almost normal, almost 100% normal, and yet somehow or another his balance was all the way off over like this. So the question was, how did this happen? Now, this poses then an interesting challenge and a possibility. And the possibility is usually something along these lines like this. On the poster that I've got behind me, this is if we've got a one simple injury example. So if you would, person's body's had one injury, and then the body adaptively compensated the one way. So a normal compensation pattern for something that had happened, okay? However, have you ever had more than one injury going on in your life? So it's possible that you had one injury that knocked you like this, then maybe you had a second injury that knocks you like this, third injury knocks you like this. So what we can see when we start to see breaking down patterns in a person's overall structure, it's how we know that we're not dealing with just one simple thing. If it was one simple thing, all we may ever need to do is one simple thing and we're going to get a nice, easy result. However, when we start seeing these different layers of distortion, we know that, okay, this is not going to be, one snap of the fingers, boom, everything problem solved. Because what we're dealing with, essentially, is we're dealing with a system that's gotten compressed, squished, crushed down like that. And so what we need to do is we need to take incremental steps to try to unwind that as much as possible. Now, this message will hopefully resonate with a number of people watching this video. And these are the ones who you've been to see X, Y, Z number of different people. And I'm not going to say I've got all of the answers either. But this may resonate with you if you have been to all these different people, but, quote, nothing is working and nobody can figure out what is going on. Well, I'd like to entertain the possibility then that what you have is a complex jam pattern. So the complex jam pattern is where we're not dealing with one thing, we're not dealing with two things, we're dealing with maybe 3 or 4, all stacked on top of each other like this. And so on the surface, superficially, what we see is calm water. Everything on the surface, quote, looks normal. We should just be able to do this and boom, the problem would be solved. But when you consider what's going on underneath the surface, everything is actually backwards from how it should be. And when you do all of the different tests, it should all add up. Now, again, myself and nobody that I know, we don't know everything about the human body. It doesn't always add up, but the closer that we can, that's how we know what's going on. So in this particular fellow's example, even though his posture was showing that he was pretty straight up, The fact that his weight was that far off was saying, no, what we are seeing on the surface is actually far more complex and far more complicated. And in fact, this person had been to see a number of different practitioners. They couldn't figure out what was going on. So what we did is we looked at it a different way, saying, okay, well, if it's not super easy like this, what we probably have is we probably have a complex jam pattern, multiple layers of injury, so that on the surface, everything looks easy. But the reality is what we have to do is we're going to have to do a number of changes in steps and stages. And the same thing again, not to say that we have the one simple everything releases. So what we have to do oftentimes when people have these complex jam patterns is instead of us, releasing everything nice, straightforward, simple, what we oftentimes do is we have to actually go back through those layers so that the body can retrace itself back to health. In other words, we would actually expect in this particular individual where the posture would be going more crooked before it ever had the opportunity to properly right itself. So I hope that makes a little bit sense, and if you find that this message resonates, again, if you've been having all of these different things but nobody can quite figure out what's going on, maybe it's because you have something like this. So if you have any questions, comments on this video, please do write them down for us. Also, if there's anybody that you can think would benefit from this video, please do share it. And otherwise, do like and follow us on our YouTube page, Facebook, Instagram, etc. This is Dr. Jeffrey Hanna at Atlas Health Australia, reminding you, take care of your neck. It is your lifeline to well-being.